everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cherish TV. We are so glad you tuned in today. We are 5 friends who may not always agree, but what we can agree on is that we all want to make the world a better place. We have different stories, different journeys, and we're here today to bring you a different view. I want to introduce you to my amazing and fabulous co-hosts, Becky, Brianna, Emma, and Stacey. Always wonderful to have you gorgeous girls here with me. But first, we want to talk about frivolity today. We want to have some fun. We're about to get into a huge episode and tackle some interesting topics. But first cab off the rank, I want to ask you, are you a Starbucks diva?
Ooh, Starbucks
Because there's a lot of them out there. Have you noticed? How many have ever
So
been stood beside someone who had a Starbucks drink that was like a minute long?
And how they remember it all, I don't even know. Those Starbucks baristas are pretty incredible.
They are
They're
amazing.
real MVPs. All right, well, I'll start off this.
Okay.
I myself am not a Starbucks diva. Maybe I'll warm to it. But I will tell you this. When I came to America, the very first time I went to a Starbucks, I had quite an interesting experience. I'm standing behind someone and they had a dog in there. Already that's weird. Like, we don't take dogs into coffee shops in Australia.
I don't know
I
about
know, that's
that.
your dream. But then the person ordered for their dog a puppy-chino.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? No. It was a real thing, people. A puppy-chino is a real
Puppy-chino.
thing.
I'm getting one.
Yeah, so not
I'm
only...
taking Laddie and Daisy to Starbucks, and we are getting a puppy-chino.
Yeah, a puppino is whipped cream in a cup. So we're giving sugar to dogs.
And
That's like a thing.
Sugar and dairy.
Does cream have sugar in it?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
yes.
guess it depends on the cream,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
They
Australian
make
cream.
it sweet. In America,
Okay.
we like to make everything sweet.
Yes, it's true.
You're
Yeah,
sweet and...
That's true, that's true.
I'm not a diva at Starbucks. I am very low maintenance at Starbucks. I am medium maintenance in real life, but at Starbucks I'm low. I get a iced cold brew and I just say leave room for cream because I can't be bothered with them getting the proper measurements.
All right, okay, fair enough, yes.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I don't think I'm that much of a diva. I'm pretty laid back with everything, actually. But for the most part, what I have noticed, though, is that people will order the, what's it called? Child's
Oh my goodness.
Baby
Okay.
chino?
Baby-
Oh, no.
So people
Child's
literally order. So they go through it like, I'll have a grande latte with almond milk, a touch of
Sophisticated.
coconut, some coffee in there, and then it just goes on. And then we hear this, right? And then I want that at child's temperature. First of all, why are we serving coffee at a child's temperature? I'm sure there's hot chocolates and whatever, but still, child's temperature, and it's an adult ordering it. So I'm like,
Yes.
come on, it's an adult.
And they
Like
can
coffee
tell.
with a side of brandy and make that child's temperature.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
like college
I love
educated,
it.
and like I cannot remember some of these extravagant orders. So I think we need to have a little coffee etiquette, both at Starbucks and every other coffee shop out there. That's awesome. Can we be really nice to our baristas?
Well,
Yes.
we've become pretty particular about everything. We are not
Everything.
just
Yes.
Starbucks divas, but everything divas.
I know,
Yeah.
it's true.
I love
Today?
it. I feel like a little bit like I'm
Quite
like a
entitled.
queen in a restaurant. Like I can like don't have that, more of that, more of this. It's like we don't get that in Australia.
But
You
definitely
eat
don't
what
get
you
that in
get given.
Australia.
But here I feel like you get power. Maybe it's gone to
You
my
don't.
head a
The
little.
chef does not like you tampering with
Oh, no, no.
anything they put in front of you. If they say it comes with a side of mashed potatoes,
That's
then
what it comes
You don't
with.
get to change it for fries or
Yeah.
rice.
And I think most other nations are actually like that. But
Yeah.
I feel in America, we
Yep.
cater to people, and it's become an entirely,
Yeah.
this is not just about food, people. Like, this is the experience.
I
This
love
is
it.
America.
This is
We have the
America.
right
I
to
love
order
it.
what we want, how we want.
Proud to be
But be
American.
careful of it not going to one's head.
Has
Yes.
anyone
Yeah.
ordered something though, and by the time you've changed it, it's a completely different meal? That happens to me all the time. Like I just basically created my own meal, and I did it better. So
But that's why we go to a restaurant, because I don't want to create
That's
it at
true.
home.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yes.
So let's be nice to our Starbucks baristas. Make sure we
Yes.
tip them well.
Yes.
If
Yes.
our order takes a minute to recite. Okay, ladies. So we want to just be talking about probably an issue that, well, it affects a lot of American women, and a lot of American women, a lot of women around the world. At Cherish TV, we're not afraid to touch on those controversial topics
Right.
Yeah.
that affect so many. And, you know, they may be sensitive, but they still need to be spoken about.
Yeah.
Right.
And so today we're going to be talking about the topic of abortion. And I know it's a very real issue for a lot of people. So if you're out there today and that's been your story, we want to just let you know we're not coming by any means with any spirit of judgment or condemnation today, but just rather trying to bring light and truth to an area that has really been a very taboo topic, especially in churches, especially in, you know, institutions like the church that we belong to. You know, it's kind of like we don't want to go there, we don't want to...
We know it's happening, but
Yes, and there's a fear around it, but we want to kind of just break some taboos today and bring that conversation out into the light. So the question is abortion ever okay?
Wow. Yeah. I think I'll start off with this one, and you know, I just want to actually applaud you, Leanne, for taking the courage to talk about this, because I'm telling you, when we asked out there, like, what are the conversations you want us to be having, this was a big one. And I think I thank God that I have a leader that's willing to talk about some of these things, and I'm thankful particularly because this is actually a little bit to do with my story. So some people heard my story, some people haven't, but just to catch you up, my mum actually went to have an abortion when she was pregnant with me twice, and for different reasons wasn't successful. So obviously this is something I'm particularly passionate about, because I was, I guess, the survivor of abortion when my mum could have made a decision differently. She chose to, you know, obviously I'm still here. So I'm particularly passionate because I think about, wow, that one decision she made obviously was the difference for me between life and death. So there's that side of it for me. The other side of it too is I just realise that there's a lot of people that are in really hard situations, and the main voices they're hearing is that abortion is a very normal solution to a problem. And I'm like, I don't know where along the line that it was an okay thing to do. So just some stats out there: for every 1,000 live births, there's 167 pregnancies that end in abortion. So this isn't something little, this is something
It's
big.
a big issue. It is.
And the real issue, I think, is like this whole idea of when does life begin. So I know all of us here at this table really believe like life begins at conception, and if that really is our belief, then we have to really begin to talk about abortion and what happens when people find themselves in situations where they're faced with a pregnancy that they don't want, or you know, there's a lot of different reasons. So is abortion ever okay? I would say no, but there is some situations that we really need to talk about. What happens when you've been raped, or you're in a situation where you're not able to provide financially or emotionally for this kid that you're in there. So I'd love to kind of unpack that. Just one more thing as well. You guys know that I was a special education teacher. And this was a very real topic in this community of people. So they get pregnant, the likelihood of them having another kid with a special needs is really high. So often when the doctors would come to them with a report that this is another child, it was a very common thing, particularly to abort a kid until they got one that was given a better diagnosis and a better chance of living a life that was more mainstream. So again, this is a conversation I've been around a lot, so I'm really excited that we're kind of talking about
me too. I'm glad that we're talking about it as well, because there's lots of people that have questions.
And I think you brought up in the beginning, Emma, you know, when are they considered a life? And like you said, if you believe in the Bible and the Word of God, we actually know that we existed in the mind of Christ before we were even conceived. So
in God's imagination.
You know, so knowing that that is our belief system. But I think it's interesting. So I think why there's such great lengths of discussion about this is because so many people don't believe it's a viable life or a life worthy. Like, when is that life inside the womb actually worthy of rights and being protected? And right now, there is none. But what I think is really interesting is that we all maybe have remembered the Scott Peterson case where he actually murdered his wife Lacey and unborn child Connor, and he was actually convicted of a double homicide. So in a crime, the unborn child was considered a viable life, and he actually is serving a life sentence for taking that life. And they actually have an act now, it's called the Unborn Victims of Violence Act of 2004. And so a child's life that's taken in the act of a crime, 60 different crimes are listed, is considered a viable life in utero. They actually even use the word embryo or fetus in utero is considered a life, and they can do a life sentence for that. But then there's a little clause in that act but however, if it's a choice of the pregnant mother, it's not considered a crime. And so in the case of a crime, the world views it as a viable life and worthy of protection and rights, but if a mother chooses to end the life, it's not considered a life and worthy of protection. So I think that just brings up an interesting double standard, really.
Well, I think for this table, you know, we are all pro-life. I want to open up the conversation around, you know, obviously abortion is a symptom of a feeling of hopelessness in some situations. I don't have the means or the ability to provide for the child. sometimes there's been trauma around certain pregnancies,
Right.
so it's easier to terminate the pregnancy as opposed to live with the consequences of having a child that you didn't want or ask for.
Right.
So what would we say to women who are standing in that valley of indecision now, where they're faced with an issue like this?
I mean, I would say to one, reach out for help. I think silence never brings an answer.
Right.
And I think that when people are struggling with a decision like this, that's the time to open up, talk to somebody in confidence, talk to a pastor, go to pregnancy resource centers
Right.
where they can lay out all of the options. I think that we can't deny, just because it's extremely difficult and there could be a lot of pain surrounding the decision, one, it doesn't make it still right to terminate a life, in my opinion. And so even though the conception, it's a difficult situation, that still doesn't give us, where did we decide that there was an out, where we can make a decision like that? And I think that, instead, there's a lot of resources out there, and even though it's difficult, let's face the difficult.
Yes.
Let's face the
Right.
difficult, because there is hope, there are solutions.
Right.
And really, when you kind of dial this down, because I know I've had a lot of conversations and they're like, well, I can agree with that, except for around the area of, rape or extreme trauma. But I've got to disagree with that, because even in those situations, that child is a child that probably wants to live.
Yes.
And so I just
Guarantee
think,
they want to live.
we have an example of that today. So I think even in those situations of extreme trauma, and I've pastored for a long time and ministered to a lot of people, and I think that I've never met a woman that I've personally chatted with that's made a decision for abortion that's happy about their decision.
Right.
So true.
They are dealing and grappling with what happened, and they're a lot of times haunted by the decisions that they've made. Now, the beautiful thing is, we have led people into extreme breakthrough, hope, healing,
Beautiful.
Hearts that are full of joy now, and so obviously, like Pastor Leanne said, we're not coming from a place of judgment or condemnation in those decisions. However, I think there is a place. Even in those situations, and that's less than 1%, from my understanding, is rape and trauma. So even if we're
That's right.
Oh, it's
looking
so
at
small.
that
It's so
category,
small.
there's 99% of people choosing.
Let me talk about this, because I looked at it. It's actually like 0.0 something. It's so small that from
So
trauma.
if we're making entire laws based around such a minuscule...
What it mainly is, honestly, is it's become a culture that this is a type of contraception.
Right.
And I know we talked about it previously. We both know people where abortion for them, whether it's the morning after pill, which is the less extreme, to even getting babies aborted as late as I think it's 21 weeks in a lot of places is the limit. Like that is for them a normal type of contraception. Now we had a friend. We all know a friend of ours had a little baby born at that age, and I'm looking at him thinking, man, this is the age that babies are allowed to be.
And he was fully formed,
Beautiful.
and, hair and
fingerprints,
Yeah.
like everything,
toes and 10 fingers, and
So to look at that and think, wow, in this
Precious.
country that is something that's okay and normal,
Right.
and we're considering like that's your right as a woman to make that decision. Like that's a
Right.
conversation we need to have. Like, are we
Yes.
allowed to? It's my right, but what about that baby's rights?
And I think abortion, I think it's a reactionary situation. Like we need to get to the place where we're not reacting, going, oh, I can't provide. Oh, I actually didn't want to have a baby. Like I'm pro-choice, and I will follow that up with saying I'm all for women having a choice to not sleep with a man they don't want to parent a child with. I'm all for the choice of using a condom, using birth control, using, if they even have diapers. I don't even know what they have anymore. We have so many choices. We have the choice of adoption. There's so many beautiful families that are unable to conceive, they cry themselves to sleep every night wanting to hold a precious baby in their arms. Like, we have so many choices, and I just don't know if taking the life of someone who can't protect themselves is a great choice to make.
And I think too, so many people who are very excited at the thought and willing to want to adopt babies with special needs. So actually there are people out there that are eager to help. And sometimes we think, well, and I was given the diagnosis over one of my children. I was pregnant with my little girl, that she was going to be born severely handicapped. And in the end, that wasn't the case. Obviously, ending her life was never an option for me anyway. I was going through with this pregnancy.
Right.
I was going to have my baby. And she was born completely healthy.
Yes.
So sometimes the diagnoses can be wrong.
Yes. Many times they are.
Many times they are. But then also, hey, even if they're not, at the end of the day, if you don't feel like you have the means or the will or the capability to care for a child that may have some difficulties and disabilities, there are people out there that want to.
Absolutely.
I think that
Yes.
knowledge can't trump principle.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, we have all of this knowledge in the medical world, and God bless, all of our doctors, nurses, but sometimes we know, what if we made a decision before we knew anything?
Right.
It's a baby, and I'm
Yes.
going to keep the baby.
Right.
And so when we start finding out all of this information, it's really a non-conversation, because it's whatever happens when that child is born, let's look at the resources available
Yes.
at that point.
So what resources would you say? Because I hear a lot of young women, young ladies who get pregnant, but they feel a lot of pressure from either mom and dad, or they feel a lot of pressure from the boyfriend or the guy that they were with, to the point that it almost felt bullied-like. Like they
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
I mean,
That
I
happens a
went
lot.
That's
in
very
and
real.
I wish someone was there to kind of support me, because I was second-guessing, but I felt forced. What kind of resources or what kind of things can we do for those young ladies?
There's beautiful organizations, crisis pregnancy centers.
Right.
Yes.
They're all
All
over.
over.
They're
Yep.
all over. In fact, we had one right here in San Diego. One side of the wall was an abortion clinic, and the other side was a pregnancy resource
Right.
center.
Right.
And I'm telling you, people that were walking in that very situation, looked up at the doors of an abortion clinic, but then looked up at the doors
Wow.
at a resource center. And a
Yes.
lot of them made the decision just to step in and find out what the resources were that were available. A lot of times they make so many of those resources free to the individual. They understand they're in crisis.
Right.
And so that's free to them. They can, get the medical care they need. They can find out how to do, mom and dad class. They can look at the resources and even governmental resources that are available to people that want to keep a child but are in crisis. So crisis pregnancy resource centers are amazing. They're all over the country. So that's one avenue.
Can I also say, like, where there's a will, there's a way. Like, I know for my mum, it wasn't at all ideal for the timing, for the support she had at that time, but she figured it out. Like, I think to encourage women out there, like, you can figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, women
Yes.
are full of strength and resourcing, and there's people
Right.
that want to help.
And
So
find a church community.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
that's what I love about
Yeah.
the church community.
Right.
So we've had some incredible baby showers for
yes,
single mothers.
beautiful.
Yes.
We have partnered with a crisis pregnancy centre here in San Diego called Turning Point.
Yeah.
And every year through our Cherish Women's Ministry have hosted baby showers.
Right.
And so they come in and are spoiled, and we're buying them diapers and strollers and
Yes.
cribs and baby clothes and all that kind of stuff. So there is a community out there that wants to help you in the
Right.
difficult
Yes.
seasons
Right.
of your life, for sure.
And I would just love just to speak on this as we kind of like wrap up this topic, and we just want to give people different things to think about
Yes.
and consider, and the resources, and I just personally want to speak to every woman that has actually made the decision to end a pregnancy and abortion, and so for me it's never a fun thing to share, and it's never something, a part of your past that you are excited to let out of the bag, but 23 years ago, when I was 17 years old, I actually had made the decision to end a pregnancy and abortion. And no, do I like saying that? Do I, I'm not proud of my decision, but the one thing I can't do is actually take that back.
Right.
And I can only move forward. And I would just really encourage anyone who's actually, made that decision to reach out and get healing, get prayer. And like we've said, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful future ahead. And I used to think that I wouldn't have, I couldn't ever be in ministry or do anything like that because of my past. But God has redeemed everything.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I just want
What a
to say as
story.
well, for me at 17, I didn't really understand like the gravity of what I was really doing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it didn't quite hit me until 13 years later when I actually gave birth to my first child. And then it was at that moment that I really realized what I had lost.
Wow.
And so it was 13 years later I actually grieved the loss of the abortion.
Wow.
And so my heart breaks for women who've never actually talked about it because there's so much shame
received
around
healing.
it. Can I just say there is no shame.
Yes.
You need to come forward and share your story with a trusted person, get prayer, get healing. And I had to go through some grief over that, but God is so beautiful, and healing is fully come full circle, and it's a part of my story now. It's a part of my testimony,
Yeah.
and I just hope and I pray that that can really set some women free from their
will.
silence,
It will.
you know?
Thank you for sharing that.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the good news in that story is that little baby is waiting for you in heaven.
Yes.
Yes.
And, you know, I think that's something that we don't often talk about.
Right.
And a great friend of our church and a great friend of us, Christine Pringle, has written a book called Jessie Found in Heaven.
Yes.
And it's about her story. She lost a child through miscarriage. And then she felt very compelled to write a story about a vision and a dream that she had one day about
Beautiful.
her son who she lost in miscarriage being raised in heaven.
Yes.
And she saw a picture of him in heaven and being raised by Jesus. And she said it just liberated her from the grief that she'd carried
Yes. Wow.
for many years. And she actually saw a picture so beautiful of just fields full of all these beautiful babies. And they were babies that had been lost through, you know, infant death or miscarriage, and then also abortion.
Right.
So I want to put courage in you today, ladies who have
right.
lost a child through either miscarriage or terminated a pregnancy. Your babies are waiting for you in heaven.
Amen.
And God has a future for you beyond the pain
Right.
of the worst decisions of your past. You're going to come through. You're going to get through this.
Yes.
And there is a community out there that wants to help you do
Yeah.
that. So we're
Yeah.
for you.
Yes.
God is for you. Yeah.
Yes.
Amen. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
That was great. It was really good. And it won't be the last time that we talk around that topic,
Right.
but I think it's good to get the conversation happening. All right. Okay. On to something a little lighter.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about the girl codes that are taboo, like taboo girl codes, like
Okay.
is it okay to date a friend's ex?
Okay.
We're looking at me.
Stacey.
Okay.
Do it. You start
It's
it off.
okay to date a friend's ex. I think that, first of all, when we talk about any type of relationship, every story is unique and different.
Yeah.
And even here, we're going to tackle topics, but, you know, and do our best. But we understand that, you know, there's different situations for different unique people. So it is hard to kind of
Yeah,
speak to it in a very
generalize.
broad way. But I will say this, as far as dating exes, I think we got to be robust in our confidence in our relationships. And when a relationship goes awry, I look at it like this. That person may not have been right for me, but maybe he's awesome for somebody else.
Well, of course.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so for me, I'm like, yeah, I think it's absolutely okay to date somebody's ex. I will say, look at the timing.
Yes.
So,
Timing.
Not the next day.
The next,
next
day.
day.
And you look at, like, if you're truly, and what's the degree of friendship we're talking about,
Yikes.
you know, as well. And what was the degree of the relationship? If I went out on a coffee date once with a guy, and then my best friend goes out with a coffee date the next week, I didn't really care. Like, that's a coffee date. If I'm in a relationship for 7 months
You
and it
wouldn't
goes
care
awry.
if I don't know if I'd care. I think I might care.
Yeah, I know.
But so if you had a coffee with a guy week 1 and week 2 he's taking out your
But if the decision
friends.
was, I'm not interested in him,
Okay,
or
but
he's
what
not
if you
interested in me.
were interested
If I
in
was
him?
interested, you got to get over it. So 1 week
Yeah.
or 1 month. So, you know, I don't look
You're
at
a
degrees
good, all right. Then
of how long.
Stacey's
So
she's the gold standard. I love it.
I think it
That's my
also
personal
matters, though, if you liked the guy at that coffee date.
Yeah.
And then he went with your friend instead. Because if you didn't care and you're like, oh, this isn't a good fit, I can understand an easier transition. But if,
But if you've got his
you're
poster on your wall and he's your screensaver.
exactly,
But there's
and
degrees
you're
of
looking at your
wrongness
text
even in that
messages.
picture.
Is he gonna contact
So
me?
you got to be careful not to dream a dream that doesn't exist. Like
You're so healthy.
yet.
I love you.
So just you got to be careful. You got to be careful with that. So I feel
Yeah.
like
And also that man isn't your property.
it's not.
Exactly.
We can't traffic the men of the world.
Like it's you know, the ring isn't on the finger. Like
Right.
you know, it's you know. So, but I
A
think
lot
we
of
do have to
people
be
say that
careful.
until there's a ring, is it all fair? Like the game, like
I don't know. Maybe it's all, well, I'm sure it's illegal, but is it kind?
And that's the
Right,
question.
the
I think.
sensitivity around
Yeah.
it, the timing, and
Right.
if your friend knew that you really liked this person and then you were rejected by them, then I think it's worth a conversation. Like,
I
you
think
know,
it
And I
like-
think it's different when you're
totally.
talking about like, teen years, maybe 19, 20, versus like adult relationships. I just think there's variations of that too. I think and you could probably speak to this, Brianna, but in the younger, and in teens and in those types of relationships, we got to be careful not to create this catty world of demonizing people, like because a guy is looking at dating a couple of different. He doesn't know himself yet. Neither does the girl really at 19.
Right.
We're growing up together.
Well, you got a 17-year-old that got married.
Yes, right here I did. Look, 25 years later, it worked. May not work for everybody, probably won't. Yeah, but it worked for me.
So what are some other taboos, though? There's so many things, like you can't call for 3 days after you go out on a date. Like,
Where did all these rules
I don't
come?
know.
And they
Who
get
made them?
passed from generation
People
to
that made
generation.
them, they need to just
Well, I just
zip
think
it.
not enough people are getting married, and the whole premise of dating is that we're figuring out who we want to be with.
Right.
Yes. So I guess the definition of dating is I'm having coffee with this one or dinner with that one to figure out who I want to spend the rest of my life with. So if we have so many codes and rules and regulations around it, everybody's going to be single forever.
Yeah, but you think, I think today dating has become more an affirmation of who I am rather than I'm looking for my life partner. And so when you go from guy to guy and when you see your best friend is wanting to date your ex-boyfriend, you start to question your value, you start to question who you are, and insecurity and competition kicks in, and that's where the comes out in us ladies. Where we're willing to jeopardize our best friend's relationship because of a guy that we found our identity in.
We want validation.
And so,
Could I ask the question though, like if they're really your friend, shouldn't you be, no matter how close you are, be okay with the other person finding happiness? I know one situation particularly where the girls aren't even friends anymore because the one that was rejected, I suppose, couldn't handle it. But I'm like, were you ever really a good friend? Like they're happy, it's all happy, like I think at some point there's got to be a bit of security.
There's got to be a talk. There's got to be communication.
For other our friends finding happiness in someone else, even if it means we don't,
A friend of mine he wanted to date one of his friend's girlfriends, and he gave her some time in that breakup, which I thought was brilliant. So instead of him going, wow, maybe she needs some healing from this relationship, he waited, gave her some time, he became her friend, started getting to know her better, and when he thought, man, I could really live with this woman, make her my wife, that's when he went to his friend and said, hey, what do you think? Would you be okay if I took her out? And he was like, blessings all yours. Yes.
But what if he said no? But then he feels like she's the right one. I say at some point, like, you've got to go after the one you feel is meant for you. And
unless that person is married to someone else.
Exactly.
Then we don't go after that person.
And look at your own track record. Like, look at your own track record. Are you the girl that has dated 12 people?
And so then they're off limits. So then all 12 people are off limits.
I own all these men, right?
San Diego's mine.
This is my.
Oh my God.
You gotta
This
look
is
at
my crew.
Stop it.
Yeah, seriously. And every man typically has dated someone before you.
Yeah.
Or every girl has dated some man. So, I just think if we have those kind of turf wars as it relates to our exes, I think, then nobody's available.
No one's getting married then.
And I would say, when you talk to your friend, you'll find out whether the dude was a jerk.
Right.
Like, why would you want to date a jerk? Someone that didn't treat your friend right in the first place. So I think when you have a communication, when you talk to your friend, you end up finding a little bit more about the guy.
Unless they're jaded and bitter.
And then there's
And I don't want I couldn't have it.
Really?
So I don't want
I just think if you
Yeah.
find the right one and it happens to be your friend's ex and they are still like hurt and wounded over it, like it's sad. You hope you can restore that relationship.
That's what I think. At some point,
but then I think it's on them.
And you can kind of
It's
figure
their
out for
level of
yourself too,
maturity.
like if that guy truly is a jerk, then eventually his jerkness is going to shine through. It's going to become very apparent. So, and people change.
Yes.
Here's the thing. So girl A may have dated the guy 2 years ago and he was behaving like a rear end. But 2 years later, he's had a massive life transformation. He's got his life in order. He's become chivalrous. He's become a gentleman.
Right.
What a shame if she took the other ex-girlfriend's word as gospel and didn't discover now who this person had become.
I think that's where kindness and grace really comes from, because we do need to let and release people to grow and make changes. And if we take a look at ourselves, like hopefully we've grown and we've made changes. So I want the same thing that I'm offering to come back to me. So I want kindness and grace and all of those things. So when we look at all these different types of relationships, I think we just need to be careful of really not tarnishing a person's reputation for no good reason.
Right.
Why can't we just do the right, be honorable? Maybe there
Yeah.
was some things that didn't work out for you.
Right.
Well, that's okay. That for somebody else, that may be not on their, ticker of things that they're okay to live with or not live with. So we just really can't,
Right.
be putting out there these reputations that, maybe
Yeah.
he is an
Yeah.
awesome guy,
Yes.
later on, but it's just not right for you. So I think we
Yeah.
just need to give grace to
And
one
we need
another.
to break the taboo because we really need more guys to be asking
Yes.
girls out on
Yes.
dates.
Come on.
That needs to happen. Some of the greatest women I know are single, and I'm telling you, it is a testament to men's stupidity. They should not be.
They need to have the
think that-
courage to
I think
ask.
communication is a big thing too. I think in the world in which we live right now, because people can really hide behind a lot of things, whether that's technology or it's more acceptable now to, get married later in life, people aren't learning how to communicate with one another, how to
Right.
show up on a date and have great conversation
Right.
and then be able to, in a healthy way, decide, oh, that may be somebody I connect with and maybe I'm not. I think people are shying away from even the dating because they're like, I think I need to have it all together, or I
Right.
don't have it
Nobody
together
has
at
it all
all.
together.
And so there's this
Right.
huge long list of things when it's just like, just meet people
Yes.
and communicate and have some
Have
fun.
fun dates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we
Enjoy your life.
I love
especially
that.
in church. Honestly, I think that in church,
Yeah.
it's like a girl has to be either crazy Christian or not Christian enough. And nobody can live up to these standards. We're human beings. And
Yes.
so I think that we just need to meet on that level and then figure it out.
I think in a future Cherish episode, we need to talk about cultivating dating.
Yes.
Yeah,
Come
we
on.
need to
Right.
talk about what does that look like. We're good. Yeah, right. Somebody write that down. Okay. We have come to the end of another Cherish TV episode. We're so glad you joined us today, but we're going to be back next week. Don't worry, we're going to be back here. And next week, we're going to be talking about how much sex should I be having? Interesting.
This is a fun topic.
And also, how do I get over a breakup? They are the questions that were most
Great.
asked, and we're going to be discussing them next week on Cherish TV. Thanks for joining us. We love having you with us. Have a great day.
Who can find a virtuous woman? For her worth is far above rubies. She seeks wool and flax, and willingly works with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She also rises while it is yet night, and provides food for her household. She girds herself with strength, and her lamp does not go out by night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hand holds the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor. Yes, she reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household is clothed with scarlet. She makes tapestry for herself. Strength and honor are her clothing. She shall rejoice in time to come.